Canada has set a new record for early voter turnout with 7.3 million ballots cast only ahead of the country's federal election. Now, that's a quarter of all eligible voters, up 25% from the last election, with just days to go before Canadians head to polls on the 28th of April. That's next Monday. The race is heating up. Liberal leader Mark Carney holds a slim lead still over Conservative rival Pierre Poilievre. My colleague Maha Siddiqui, meanwhile, brings us the latest developments straight from Vancouver.
Canada saw a record number of voters turning out for the advance polling over the long weekend from Friday to Monday. 7.3 million people cast their ballot over the 4 days, which was a 25% jump from the numbers seen during advance polling in 2021. Election Canada, though encouraged with these numbers, is being cautious, not willing to take any guesses as to whether the final voter turnout is going to be any better than 2021. The last time around, Canada saw 63% voter turnout, with the voter turnout among the youth being at 47%, much less than the national average. And that is why special arrangements were made for the young voters this time around, with 100 universities and colleges across Canada setting up special voting booths for the youngsters last week here in Canada. The Election Canada believes that this would have encouraged more voters, more younger people to turn out and be participants in the electoral process. The numbers that we are seeing this time around and what was seen during the advance polling specifically with long queues and people having to wait to cast their ballots suggests two reasons why people want to be participating in these elections so crucially. One, the Trump factor, that is the threat from the US, both the economic coercion as well as the annexation threat, which is making voters turn out in large numbers to be able to give a clear mandate to one of the two parties. Yes, this election has turned into a two-horse race in Canada between the Liberals and the Conservatives. The other two parties, that is the NDP and Bloc Québécois, have constantly seen their support dwindling during these elections, and this is largely because the voters of these two parties as well, or the supporters rather of these two parties want to vote either the Liberals or the Conservatives so that one side gets a clear majority and is able then to take on US President Donald Trump more firmly. And here's where Mark Carney scores above Pierre Poilievre, at least that's what the opinion polls suggest. Mark Carney has continued to stay ahead in the perception that he can be a better Prime Minister for Canada because of him being a banker, an economist. He has been the former governor of Bank of England and Bank of Canada, and during his stint as governor of Bank of Canada, he was able to keep inflation within limits that is up to between 1 to 3%, and therefore he is looked on as a much favorable candidate, somebody who will be able to take on US President Donald Trump firmly. Meanwhile, Mark Carney has been using this image as well, talking tough and also hitting out at the Conservatives on this count. After the Conservatives released their costed platform on Tuesday, Mark Carney attacked Pierre Poilievre, saying that his party lacked any vision to take on US President Donald Trump. On the other hand, Pierre Poilievre has released his costed platform where he says that he will reduce the deficit while being able to bring some relief for the middle class as well as some relief in the housing crisis as well that has been seen in Canada. In fact, both inflation and the housing crisis were seen as the major issues for this election before the 20th of January when President Trump took office, and the annexation threats and the economic coercion in the form of tariffs towards Canada tilted things in favor of the Liberals and specifically Mark Carney. There was a change of leadership in the Liberal Party as well. Mark Carney, in fact, emerging victorious there by numbers that were even better than what Justin Trudeau saw when he became the leader of the Liberal Party. Hence, at the current moment, even though the Conservatives have been able to close in on the gap that was seen over the last many weeks between the Liberals and the Conservatives in opinion poll, however, the Liberals continue to remain ahead in opinion polls, entering the final lap, that is the final week of campaign here in Canada. The election takes place on the 28th of April.